for the rest of time,
Yeah.
you only had 10 exercises to hold on to and grow as much muscle as you could, what would you choose and why?
Hey guys, good morning and welcome to Castle's Corner. Today, just real quick before breakfast, I'll be debunking Phil Heath's top 10 exercise selection and showing you why he really shouldn't be giving advice to anybody, even though he's multiple Mr. Olympia. I don't care. He has amazing genetics. He spends thousands of dollars on drugs. He spent 30 years plus to get where he got, doing hundreds of exercises. He is not an expert in the field. He doesn't know anything about how muscles grow, work, hypertrophy, or biomechanics. And I'm going to be demonstrating that in just a second while I break this down. His advice is terrible and nobody should listen to it. If they did do these 10 exercises, or if he chose to do these 10 exercises to become Mr. Olympia, he would not develop his abs, his obliques, upper trap, lower trap, middle trap. He wouldn't even train his erector spinal. He wouldn't touch his lateral deltoids. He wouldn't touch his hamstrings. He wouldn't touch his calves. His quads would be underdeveloped, as would his glutes. He wouldn't train his forearms. I mean, I could keep going through the list. So he's not a source of advice. He's not intelligent at all when it comes to exercise, and I'm going to be demonstrating it to you. So let's go ahead and get into the video.
Incline presses, no question about it.
Dumbbell?
Dumbbell more than likely because, you know, it's just, you can do a lot with the dumbbells over the barbell, right?
Guys, incline bench press does not train your pectorals. I have covered this in all 7 of my books and multiple articles. I have at least 20 or 30 videos on YouTube explaining how incline bench does not train your pectorals. But real quick, without getting even scientific about this, let's just run an experiment you at home. You have your arms at your side. We know that the pecs originate right here. This is where the muscle connects to your actual rib cage, and the insertion is over here. You can see the line it makes. It's a fan-shaped muscle. Now when my hands are in this position, the fibers look like this. Some of them go up, some of them go across, some of them go down. When I raise my arms up here, as you would be for doing any form of pressing movement, now all of the fibers are pointed down. Now if I was to do an incline bench press movement, you can see my pectorals do not move. Why is that? Because they're not contracting. Do it yourself if you don't believe me. The incline angle is not an angle which trains your pecs. It trains your front deltoid. Okay? Very minorly, 5% clavicular fibers depending on the angle of your torso and your individual morphology. Now, real quick, most people don't do incline bench. They arch their back and they make it a flat bench. Probably what he does as well. Now he is using dumbbells, which is good because dumbbells provide unilateral benefit and crossover, but again, he's training his front deltoids.
I always want that shelf up here. It looks great in t-shirts, and yeah, you know, if you're hitting a side shot, you want the upper pec development to exist.
Guess what? Muscles don't have brains. Muscles pull insertion to origin. You cannot just magically grow muscle fibers up here. That upper shelf he's talking about is just having developed his chest, which he absolutely did through flat movements and decline movements, not incline bench press movements.
Something about that angle that's so comfortable as well.
Yeah.
It feels so nice. It feels right.
Yeah,
it feels right.
Yeah, you don't feel as much in danger.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Even when you're doing flies, you know, like you can do that. It just feels so good, you know. So that would be one of them.
The notion that it feels better is so stupid, I don't even think I have to explain this. Number one, it doesn't feel better because depending on your individual bone morphology, this could very easily be literally grating your tendons against your bone here, okay? So the way that the shoulder actually works, the humerus sits inside of the socket, kind of like a tee in a golf club, a golf ball rather, and it just kind of rotates in that socket. Now when you're doing an incline pressing movement, again, depending on your morphology, you can very easily just be rubbing your tendons together and causing a lot of damage. So it depends on the person. Number 2, it's a front delt exercise, not pectorals.
Laterals for sure. Dumbbell lateral raise.
Standing, seated?
Standing for sure.
And where do you...
Okay guys, standing lateral raise I have covered ad nauseum. It has a backwards resistance curve. It is not an efficient exercise. Let me explain. When you're doing a lateral raise, you are finishing with a fully contracted muscle, lateral delt, And you're also finishing with a very long lever, which is perpendicular with gravity, meaning it's a 100% lever, meaning it is loading the lateral deltoid with the absolute most amount of weight in the contracted position. The issue with this is this operates outside the correct resistance curve for said muscle. Muscles pull insertion to origin in a straight line. The lateral deltoid is responsible for lifting the humerus in a lateral plane of movement, okay? Number 2, muscles always will operate best when starting in a lengthened position at a mechanical disadvantage midway through the movement, becoming a 100% active lever. And again, towards the end of the movement, when the muscle is fully contracted, there should be little to no load on the muscle itself. So you should be performing a lying lateral deltoid raise, which will actually make your lateral deltoids grow. This exercise is terribly inefficient, and it's no wonder he had trouble growing his shoulders.
What were your cues on this?
I knew you were going to say this. Yeah, from the
Are you
side.
out to the side? Are you out in front a little bit
No,
here?
I'm
What
like
are you
right here.
thinking?
To the side.
Yep.
To the side.
Are you
You start
leading with
going out in
elbows,
front-
leading with arms?
More just, I guess that would just be with arms,
Yep,
right?
yep,
You know, so
yep.
that's
Because
just
sometimes
me.
you see people almost flaring up with dumbbells down.
But as you
Okay, so at least he knows that you're only supposed to be moving the humerus instead of allowing the clavicle and scapula to raise as well, which involves different muscle groups. But what he's talking about here is just by changing the position of the arm bone, you'll be involving different muscle groups. Now, he's right about this. This is why you want to keep the lateral deltoid in a perfectly lateral plane of movement. The reason people bend their arms and change the position of their forearms and such is because it lowers the lever magnification and lowers the actual load being delivered to the target muscle.
did that, your traps moved.
Yep.
So I don't need that.
Yep.
I don't want that. Lower trap, now that's going to, I just need to get it. If I'm working this, I understand it's a secondary muscle, but I don't need to be,
You're isolating.
because you end up doing this. You see guys like they come down and then they're doing this.
So again, yeah, what I mentioned, so ego lifting. Now, he does ego lifting too. He, of course, wouldn't call it that, but the reason he does this movement is because it allows him to do more weight and, of course, look more impressive in the gym. He would be much better suited using a 15 or 20-pound dumbbell, lying on his side and doing lateral deltoids. Of course, he would never do that unless he actually learned something. Now, the reason people, again, are swinging and doing this ridiculous momentum thing is because they're using their entire body to use the weight. It's one of the dumbest things you can do is you're not training your target muscle. Every time you use that momentum in all of those other muscle groups, you are lowering the load you're attempting to put on the target muscle, the lateral deltoids. Momentum is for morons only.
You see it. Why is that moving? Can I deactivate it? Sure. Right here. Okay.
Cool.
Let's do that. So, okay. Oh, one-arm preachers.
One-arm preacher curls. Okay, so again, something else I've covered ad nauseum. At least it's one arm, again, so it's unilateral. He didn't say barbell, that's good. But it's a preacher curl. A preacher curl is where your elbow is in front of your body. The issue with this is something called active insufficiency. The bicep has 2 origin points up here and 2 down here, but they're basically right next to each other. Once again, origin to insertion in a straight line. Active insufficiency just means that you're beginning with a pre-contracted bicep. What this means is it actually lowers the amount of force production you're able to achieve. I have lots of videos about active insufficiency. Just check it out.
One-arm preacher curls.
Dumbbells again.
It could be on a machine or dumbbells, But
Okay.
but since we're gonna, only have some dumbbells on a deserted island, we're gonna do that.
You can use whatever you want.
So
You got the best gym in history, but you can only
so
use 10
definitely
things.
a preacher curl.
Okay.
I'd just like to point out, again, that he could pick any bicep exercise he wanted to, and he chose one that has active insufficiency, something that anybody who knows absolutely anything about training knows about active and passive insufficiency. This guy apparently has never opened a book.
And why single?
Because I can concentrate more on one arm than 2.
Mm-hmm.
I can also isolate and understand why is one arm stronger than the other.
Okay, so he just said it. Unilateral is better than bilateral. The reason for this is because unilateral has crossover or carryover education. This is when you perform a movement unilaterally, could be dumbbells, could be cables, whatever it may be, but basically you're only using the muscle group on one half of your body. Now, by training this way, you can focus more, generate more force, and on top of that, there's a small percentage of carryover benefit. So even if my left arm was broken and in a cast, if I was doing bicep curls with my right, there would be a neurological connection to the other side of my body, and there would stimulate muscle growth on this side. This is why it's better to do unilateral exercises instead of bilateral. The reason he has weakness on one half of his body as opposed to the other half, maybe a weaker left bicep or a weaker right bicep, is because he uses a ton of barbells in his training. If he didn't use barbells, he wouldn't have weaknesses and imbalances on either side, back, front of his body.
And am I performing the rep the same on either arm? Now, if I'm in a fixed position, I can't tell. So I need to see, I need to feel, and I need to physically see this.
You need to feel, you need to physically see. What difference does it make if you can see the muscle? And once again, guys, feeling a muscle means exactly nothing. It doesn't mean you're training it, doesn't mean it's contracting, doesn't even mean it's doing an isometric hold. It's all in your head, guys. Feeling a muscle means exactly dick.
So
Are you supinating on that, or are you going to stay?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. But I also got to recognize, like, am I having any, bicep tendon stuff and shit like that? And, which I actually have right now. I'm like, damn, like, okay.
Feel it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's 3.
So
I'm not even going to get into this. You guys know about his health. You know how much he's destroyed his body, about all the hospital visits, about all the damage he's done. Of course, he has problems with his biceps. He's continuously doing ridiculously heavy loads, stupid ego lifting because he doesn't understand about doubling of levers. He doesn't understand intelligent exercise. He's continuously destroying his shoulders. He's continuously compressing his spine. He's doing everything wrong. Of course, he's covered in injuries. I'm not surprised.
3, hack squats for sure. For sure, hack squats. Oh my gosh, it just feels incredibly strong to be in that position. I love it.
Yeah, hack squats, sure. Let's pick a really stupid movement, ego lifting, etc. I'm not going to get too much in this one. Hack squats are not an intelligent movement. Of course, it depends where you put your feet on the platform. It depends how much load, how you're performing the movement. But I think we've all seen how Phil Heath does his hack squats with as much weight as humanly possible. And as he pointed out, it feels so good. That's because it's stroking his ridiculous ego. It's not doing anything besides building his glutes and his quads in an ineffective manner.
I did a lot of damage on that machine.
Yeah, you did a lot of damage, not to your muscle fibers. You did a lot of damage to your spine. You did a lot of damage to your knees and your ankles, probably. Dumbass.
What
are your cues when doing hack squat?
Well, the platform. I can go wide. I can go at the top. I can go at the bottom. I can go narrow. I like to go a little bit.
I'll give
more
you.
narrow.
You can have that. That can be all part of 4.
Exactly.
Okay,
See,
okay,
but it's all the same machine. Yeah. So
you're playing the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 4.
Okay, yeah, so when performing a hack squat, it does matter where you actually put your feet. Very simple, in a nutshell, if you put your feet directly on the bottom of the platform, kind of like you're standing straight up and down, you allow your heels to come up and your knees to go as far forward as is possible when you're performing the hack squat, you'll be training your quads in a pretty effective manner. The downside is I've never seen anybody do this because you'd have to essentially have only a little bit of weight on the actual machine. And this is because you're intelligently using your levers, maximally using lever magnifications, and targeting your quads directly. He, of course, does not do this. If you put your feet at the very top of the platform, you would then be maximally using the upper leg bone as a lever, and you'll be targeting your glute more. In a, again, fairly efficient resistance curve depending how you do it, but once again, you'd be targeting primarily your glute with this, and you wouldn't really be able to do much loading if you were doing it correctly. He probably does it with his feet in the middle, with as much weight as possible. He barely has any range of movement, more than likely. I've seen a few of his videos, but I'm guessing here.
Okay. This is fun. Rear delts, but face pulls with the rope.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says he wants to train his rear delts, and then he picks the worst possible exercise for them. At least he is actually targeting his rear delts, but he's doing it in an incredibly stupid way. So for those of you who don't know, you have a front deltoid here, you have a lateral deltoid here, and you have a rear deltoid here. Now, that rear deltoid is responsible for bringing your upper arm bone backwards. Now, what he's talking about is doing a face pull like this. Now, there's a lot wrong with this. But the first thing to talk about is doubling of levers. I previously mentioned it, but if he wanted to intelligently train his rear deltoid, he would use a completely long, straight arm, both bones in a row for something like a 36 or 38-inch lever, which would dramatically magnify the load. He, of course, doesn't do this because he'd only be able to do it with 20 or 25 pounds. He would rather do face pulls, which he's able to do with probably 100, even 200 pounds like this, because his actual lever magnification is probably 3 inches. And that's because he's got one lever here, one lever here. They're completely doubled, which means they're removed. All of this means nothing. What does matter is this little tiny 3 inches here, which he's using on both sides to do this ridiculous movement. Not a good movement for your rear delts. What you do want to do, since it pulls diagonally and it's a diagonal muscle, is to begin up here, once again at a mechanical disadvantage with the rear deltoid fully stretched. Pull it down towards your side, maybe 1 foot away from your hip, maybe a little closer depending on body morphology, which would be ending with a fully contracted muscle, again, with little to no load on it. Use a dumbbell, use a cable, it just depends on where you put your body. Got a lot of videos on this, guys.
Around about eye height.
Yeah, right here.
Yep.
Okay, so even worse, guys. Just a reminder, the rear deltoid's down here. Why is he doing this again? I don't know. I actually have no idea why we'd even think that would be a good movement. I have no clue. Somebody help me out.
Since we're using that rope, tricep extensions.
Overhead.
Down.
Okay. Yep.
So he took what could be a good movement, a tricep extension, and he made it a bad movement. The reason for this is because he's using a rope. So by using the rope, he's got a V, he's got a single origin point of load, and he's pulling like this. So number one, that's a bilateral movement. Number two, you're just really doing all kinds of wonky stuff here that does not need to take place. And number three, again, it's not a particularly good resistance curve depending where the cable is originating from. This case, I've seen his videos. The cable originates in front of him, roughly 2 feet, and he pulls it directly down. This is not a horrible resistance curve, but it's not a good one. And using a rope is a mistake. If he was going to use a rope, he should use it one hand at a time, unilaterally, like he does his biceps or a couple other movements he mentioned with dumbbells, which would be intelligent to do unilaterally. Why you would make it bilateral, why you would split the resistance, why you would have one source of resistance, I don't know.
That's what, six?
Six. Yep.
Okay. 4 more. We got to throw another chest movement in there. So, we did the incline dumbbell press. We got to have an incline dumbbell fly.
Why put both of those in? What are you getting out of the fly that you're not getting out?
Getting a good stretch, and I'm able to contract, differently as well, working that same plane.
You did the incline press, which is already a stupid movement and isn't going to grow your chest, and now you gotta do an incline fly. I'm not even going to address how unbelievably stupid that is. Although when he's doing the incline fly, he is actually increasing lever magnification because his arm is longer, which means he's going to be using a lot less weight on those dumbbells. Increasing the stretch doesn't do anything. Not sure what he means by that. But yeah, you'd be much better off doing a decline if you were trying to target your chest, and then maybe select a different exercise for a different muscle group, because so far you're missing, 30 muscle groups.
Rear delts. What about
back? We got to throw some back in there. So underhand barbell rows, underhand.
Bent over
rows, underhand.
Okay, gotta throw some back in there. At least he finally remembered he has back. Here's the downside. Underhand rows are not going to target your back. What he is going to target was that pesky muscle he was trying to train earlier, that rear deltoid, the one that's responsible for pulling your arm backwards. That's what he's training when he does a row. He gets his traps to a small degree, provided he retracts his scapula together towards his spine, but it's not, again, an efficient movement. Your traps do not connect to your arms, they connect to your scapula, so you must directly move your scapula towards your spine. This should be done directly, insertion to origin, with again the scapula passing the midpoint as a 100% active lever perpendicular with gravity. This is accomplished from a 45-degree side angle. Has nothing to do with your arm movement, has everything to do with your scapula movement. So not a good exercise for your back. Keep trying, bud.
Yep. What's your reason for going underhand rather than overhand there?
Because I've noticed that overhand I'm getting more of, initially you're going to feel it more in your forearms right here.
Yep.
And I'm only going to get so much. And I feel like it's more like there's more margin for error, I believe.
Yep.
Whereas if you're coming here, I don't feel it as much. And it's simulating what I would do on stage, pulling the elbows back. So,
all right, just a reminder, using a barbell creates the bilateral deficit. With him bent over in this particular regard, what he is doing is his erector spenile, the muscle which is responsible for holding his spine isometrically contracted in that position, is getting heavily worked. The reason he prefers underhand to overhand is because the position of his actual muscles and tendons in his hands, they give out really quick because he's using such massive weight, and they're in a disadvantaged position. This is why it's more comfortable for him. This does not mimic the movement he does on stage. The movement he does on stage is retracting his scapula and then taking them out to the sides. There are better movements that do this than the rear deltoid row.
Would you do, I guess a part of that as well is restricting the injury risk from being bent over so much? Like underhand, you're always going to be a little weaker. So would you do that from a rack rather than from the floor?
Oh, I've done that from the floor.
Right.
Yeah, I've done that from the floor.
A lot of axial loads being at that angle in your lower back, but it's much less than a deadlift, I suppose.
Yeah.
The only reason it's so much load and it's so damaging is because you're using so much weight on a barbell because you're not intelligently loading your muscles, you're not intelligently using your bones, you're not pulling insertion to origin, you're literally doing nothing right. This is why all of these problems you're having and all of these little things you have to do to compensate keep happening. If you would just drop your ego and learn some basic biomechanics, you'd be much happier, Phil.
But sometimes you can go to like a squat rack and then it'll have like the little bars there.
Safety
so you can
bars.
pull, so you get safety bars. So you just pull it off of that.
Cool. Okay, I think you've got 2 left.
So I got 2 left. Ooh, boy. I'm going to go with pull-ups.
Neutral, underhand, overhand.
Overhand wide.
Okay, so I've addressed this in like my Chris Bumstead debunking and a couple other ones. Pull-ups are not necessarily a bad movement for your lats. It does depend on how you do them. What he's talking about is doing an overhand grip like so and pulling like this. This is actually not bad for your lats. It's a fairly efficient exercise. The downside is it's bilateral. There is a reduction in lever magnification, and it'll be stressing the hell out of your shoulders if you weigh as much as he does. He would be much better off doing a cable, 30-30 lateral pull. It looks something like this and pulls insertion to origin in a straight line with a full range of movement, and it doesn't damage your body in any way. The reason he doesn't do this is because he'd have to use only 80 or 90 pounds.
And I guess last one would be
Another legs.
step mill.
You could use the step mill as the 10th exercise. And did you
Because I can carve out the legs. I can.
So his 10th exercise he could do, he's going to pick stairs. He could just, do stairs for cardio. He could just walk stairs. He could just walk uphill. I don't know why he would call that an exercise, but okay.
I can do glutes with that.
Did you ever do that weighted?
Yeah, actually I did. I wore a weight vest for, what show was that? It was early in my career. I would wear like weight vests and I would wear like ankle weights. And
Okay, now I've talked about this many times before. Wearing a weight vest, generally speaking, is a pretty incredibly stupid thing to do. The benefits of weight vests would be to simulate things for police officers, firemen, these kinds of things. Wearing a weight vest, provided you're wearing it correctly, would be very good doing cardio if you were working on your respiratory function, on expanding your ribs, on correcting your vertical breathing patterns, becoming more 360, using your diaphragm. Weight vests are good for this. They're not really good for anything else. Why you would wear it while doing the stepping mill and ankle weights as well, I don't know. I used to do this when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just wanted to do hard things because they were hard. This isn't going to really burn any more calories, a little bit. It's not going to add to anything except the ankle weights are going to be training his psoas. If he didn't, the psoas is what's responsible for lifting your upper leg. So he'll be training his psoas with those, but those muscles don't show if you're a bodybuilder, although you should train them to be healthy. Training his glutes, he already did them if he's doing hack squat the way he says he did. He's already doing his glutes with his hack squat, so why is he trying to do it again? And as far as carving your legs out, you don't carve your legs out. You build muscle and you remove fat. There's no such thing as carving. Doing stairs is not going to spot reduce the fat on your legs. It's not going to help in any way like that. I don't know what he's talking about.
did something that no one else ever did. I was using E-stem units while I was doing cardio.
Like a Compex?
Yeah, I used Compex because I was sponsored by them for a while. So I was doing Compex on step mill.
All right, guys, so this is the end of it. I'm not going to let him keep talking about all this nonsense. Real quick, these electric stims while doing cardio. No, he's not the only one to do this. I've seen a lot of people doing this. There's nothing new about this. As far as doing those for cardio and trying to build additional muscle while you're doing them, I've never seen evidence for this. Do they build muscle? I don't actually know. I've never seen evidence that they do, but then again, I've never looked into it. I tell you what I do know that they do is that by running electricity through you in the manner that they do, you will be contracting the muscle in little tiny micro contractions. Now, I don't know what that does. I'll look into it and make another video. But for the purpose of this top 10 exercises, let's just say take it out of the equation because it's not like he does that with any of his exercises. Now, I hope you enjoy this biomechanical breakdown. I know I said an awful lot of controversial things. I know I'm insulting Mr. Olympia, and I don't care because everything I've said is factual. If anybody listened to this top 10 list and tried to duplicate it in hopes of growing their body, they would roughly miss 80% of the muscles on their body. The muscles that they did train would not be trained efficiently, and they would be destroying their shoulders, spines, and knees while doing them. I have other videos where I go into detail and explain which is the best movement for each muscle on your body. There's only one, how they actually work, and everything else. I don't even know, 1,000 videos about this. I have 8 books, hundreds and hundreds of articles. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. And yeah, I just really wish people would learn and understand that exercise should take you, give or take, 15 to 20 minutes a day, one perfect movement per exercise group. You don't need to be taking all of these ridiculous drugs, spending hours and hours and hours and hours in the gym. You don't need to be doing all of these hundreds of ridiculous exercises, which he's done. None of this is productive, and you'd be a whole hell of a lot happier if you just did one perfect exercise for each muscle group on your body. You trained all of your muscles on your body, which for me anyways is 6 days a week, 15 minutes a day, and over the past 9 years, almost 10 years now, I've never touched a barbell, gym machines, I don't use them, my workouts are 15 minutes, and I've built 75 pounds of muscle. So, guys, look into my work, look into my videos if you haven't already, learn better. I hope that you liked that video. I just wanted to remind you all, if you're able to and you support my work, please make sure that you like the video, you subscribe if you haven't already, you click the notification bell, and you share this video or leave a comment to help the algorithm. Every little bit helps, and I'm trying to get this information to as many people as is possible. And of course, if I can help you with any of your coaching needs, you need a running plan, you need a workout plan, you want to build mass, you want to lose weight, you want to do things correctly, you want a full education about your diet, your exercise, your respiratory health, supplements, and everything else, just contact me at castleinprogress.com or via my email, castleinprogress@gmail.com. If you don't want coaching directly, just check out my Etsy store. It's linked in the description of all of my videos. I have all of my many books, tools, and everything else there. Or finally, check out my Substack. It's linked in a lot of the videos as well. And it's free, a free newsletter where I share the latest science, advice, exercises, and everything else for free. So thank you as always for your support, everyone.